of Medicaid and 74% of food assistance, or SNAP. 64% believe abortion should be legal in all or most cases, and 59% believe that the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision should not have been overturned. And there's agreement on many other fundamental issues. Historically, presidential politics swing right and left, and what is dismantled by one administration is often reassembled by another. The loosening of Eastern aristocratic political dominance by Andrew Jackson's presidency did not lead to the diminution of executive power. Control of Congress by the enslavers was undone by the creation of the Republican Party. The McKinley tariffs were dismantled in progressive reshaping of government by Theodore Roosevelt. Warren Harding's return to normalcy, which facilitated debilitating corporate abuses of people and the economy, generated Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal. Dwight Eisenhower strengthened Social Security and government regulation of banking rather than ending them. Bill Clinton's election was in part a rejection of Reaganism, while Barack Obama's was in part a rejection of two Bush presidents. Reaganist policies and Joe Biden's election of a rejection of Trump after his first term. History suggests Trump's second term reforms won't be all permanent. Results of state elections are as mixed as those nationally, not as clear as Trump's victory here and Mary Patola's loss to Nick Begich III might indicate. As Iris Samuels and Sean McGuire pointed out in these pages, Anchorage voted for Harris while Alaskans elsewhere voted for Trump. In Anchorage, Harris polled a point higher than Trump, while statewide Trump outpolled her by 13 points. And Anchorage has sent a delegation to the state legislature that will work across party lines under coalition leadership in both houses. Harris was right that America is not going back. The rise of women is permanent. They are not just politics in the media, in courtrooms, and on the bench, in big-time sports, in the cockpits of airliners, and in the higher levels of military leadership. The country now has 13 women governors, 25 U.S. senators are women, 1/4. In 7 states this year, voters guaranteed a new right to abortion. And it's not just women's rights. 3 states voters approved a higher minimum wage. The rise of black middle class is permanent, as is the recognition of the resilience and legitimacy of indigenous people and their rights. Conservatives often emphasize that people should have enjoyment of the rewards of their industry. Liberals would agree. That right is explicitly stated in the Alaska Constitution. Conservatives argue that much taxation is an unwarranted appropriation of one's labor has earned. Oh, there's a typo. And that individuals should be empowered to manage the conditions of their lives themselves, rather than the government manipulating those conditions. Liberals argue that without government protection, many individuals are vulnerable and are often taken advantage of, both by conditions and by unscrupulous individuals. They believe that only the government has the power to guarantee a level playing field, equal protection, and opportunity. Through the warp and woof, the back and forth of our history, the evolution of American culture shows increasing attention to equality of opportunity for all citizens. As examples, the end of slavery, suffrage for women, Indian citizenship, Brown v. Board of Education, Indian self-determination, and despite some present appearances, the arc of cultural evolution is progressive, sustaining belief in the rule of law and moving persistently toward more diversity and inclusion, protection of disadvantaged, and government assistance to better people's lives. That's the teleology of American culture.
Thank you. I think we should give you a round of applause. You made it, and in fact took your glasses off to do that.
It was easier to see, actually.
So, so that's an example of a essay that's limited. You know, when you send essays into these are actually an opinion piece. Right. That he's frequently published, though, because of his position, his authority. And as you noticed, as he was as you were reading, that he's a historian, and so what he does is tries to remember all the things he remembers and tell you about all the things he remembers, so, to bolster his his basic argument. There were two main points that I gathered from this. The halfway point, he said with regard to the national situation, that we're much more in agreement as a population than the news media suggests. It looks like we're quite divided, but when it gets down to specific issues, we tend to be, really pretty close to even a majority in agreement on a lot of the positions. One thing, keep in mind statistical problems. When he says that Anchorage voted for Harris, then he points out that that was by 1 point. Mm-hmm. Well, 1 point.
That's not saying a lot.
Out of the whole, that's not really like all of Anchorage went for,
pretty divided.
And of course, when you talk about statistics as he does with coasts versus, rural towns, that's you've got lots of voters. Lots of the votes in all of those places are actually just about as closely split as
right.
as anywhere else. Number one, though, I would agree with him that Americans overall generally agree on more issues than we're divided by. And so the image of someone absolutely furious with their neighbors is not really that normal. I think there are clearly certain individuals that are in that boat, though normally we find there's something wrong with that person when they're so angry, that, they decide to start shooting at people.
Yeah, they're mentally unwell.
Yeah. Now, and I'm not, by the way, when I uploaded my videos from the previous class, not the most immediate class, that was yesterday from a philosophy class, and that all went up and I hadn't gotten any complaints. But from one of the segments of the class that I gave on Tuesday here, and talking about how science, goes back and forth between, and I'm not going to repeat it because what happened was I got an alarm from YouTube saying that I spoke and I was misrepresenting serious health issues and so on, and so that particular 15-minute segment is not available for use. I listened to it myself, and it said at 5:11 you said something that's totally wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? What? So I went. I think somewhere in that I did mention the V word, which I'm not going to say. That kind of V word.
That's probably what did it.
I'm like, wait a minute. I'm talking about how science is arguing over this stuff. I'm not saying, hey, you guys that are doing this or that are harming yourself. I wasn't doing that. So when I listened to it, I thought, there's no way.
Wittgenstein's context, right? Like, I don't think YouTube understood that.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the initial alarm was generated by an AI program that wasn't a person actually listening to what I was doing. So I clicked the one button that said appeal, right? And haven't gotten a reply yet from them over that, but I hope that what happens is when I click appeal, someone actually will listen to it and realize, what? He's teaching a class about the way science has difficulties with hypotheses, not promoting
one or the other.
Something that is against the national public health or something.
I agree with that.
So hopefully it will be released so that if anyone's watching that series of videos, which I don't know that anybody does.
I watched a few of them. Got back.
But it's also, the threat included, if you do this again within 90 days,
Bullshit. Yeah.
we're going to send a drone to blow you up, whatever
There's so
whatever
much
their punishment.
disinformation on YouTube. It surprises me that flat.
Yeah, I mean, the only previous issues I've had with YouTube about things that I've posted was like when I was visiting Red Rock Canyon in the area around Las Vegas. Don and I were in a rental car listening to a classical music station and taking videos of rocks, because that's all you can take. That's all there is. And when I uploaded it that night from the hotel, I got an alarm that I had included copyright material. And I was, you know what it was? It also recorded the radio that we were listening to.
Yeah.
So I had uploaded music that it identified right away as copyright material.
I didn't know it was that crazy.
And I don't think it actually even cut it off. It just warned me that I shouldn't be doing that. So that's the only other time I've gotten in trouble with YouTube. And I'm very appreciative. I mean, I don't pay anything for posting those thousands of videos that I've got there. And I use them. But so his, not even halfway through the first column, really, he ends up with some conclusions about the political state of the United States, which I think are pretty obviously agreeable to everyone, although, of course, there are folks that are upset with the way the election went, and there are other folks that are thrilled with the way it went.
In the first part of his essay, he speaks about, conservatism is conservatism, and progressivism is progressivism. It's like another duh,
Yeah. Well, the longest part of the piece is all about local issues. Mary Poltello versus Nick Begich III. And by the way, we've got another Begich. Nick's uncle Tom may be running for governor.
Really?
And within my circle of friends, they're all wondering, will that be too many Begiches? Et cetera. But I mean, it's like everybody in Alaska, if they see Murkowski on there, they're inclined to vote for Murkowski because the Murkowski family name is there.
Well, the Murkowskis, this is my opinion, YouTube. The Murkowskis are very good about breaching the divide. They're very centrist.
Well, that seems to me the healthiest position to take, because if you want,
I'm a big fan.
if you want to have something actually happen, you need to be moderate enough that you can cross the aisle and make something happen. Woo! Very icy out there. Another car sliding in that circle there. Not a circle, a curve.
Yeah. It is really bad. I slid right past it, and I was going 5 miles an hour.
Okay. So I think that was the main analysis I was going to give to that. His concluding line is, that's the teleology of American culture. And what he means there is that we're getting to be a more liberal society in general.
I like that point. I think it's, the pendulum always swings, and I've always talked about that. Eventually, pendulums eventually they have to come to rest, but in politics they don't.
We have, when I look at the pendulum, the actual pendulum in our library, which I find fascinating. It's a Foucault pendulum, not related to Michel Foucault, but instead Foucault, the mathematician.
Right.
The reason it keeps going is because there's a motor up at the top.
There's no perpetual motion.
It's not a perpetual motion machine. But yes, when we're looking at, this isn't a closed system. We have the sun, so we've got increased energy, despite much of it, I think floats out into space. For the most part, we're gaining energy. Thank you, sun. At least until the sun, which is a closed system, runs out of juice, which isn't expected to happen
It'll
for.
burn us up before it runs out of juice.
Well, yeah, there's a neat book called "The Heat Will Kill You First." You know, when we're talking about global warming and so on. In any case, his argument, though, that we're generally, the pendulum moves towards justice. That you hear lots of metaphors,
you got a lot.
you know. That's actually just an argument, and there are counter arguments, and I